So I think that having creative practice can enhance your writing life. One thing I want to drive home over the course of this talk is the problem with writing to be published is you've turned a thing that you enjoy, you've turned art and craft into work, into labor, right? You've added this sort of capitalist logic to why it is you are doing this thing, because now you're trying to produce words to be sold to other people and to insert yourself into an industrialized system of production, whether that's indie publishing, traditional publishing, whatever it is. By trying to get people to pay you money for the stories that you create, you're putting yourself in this position of turning art into labor. And I'm gonna talk a little bit more about that. So when I talk about all of this, I do want to resist the urge to turn this into a capitalist argument of like, you know, the self-help book version of this is, you know, how to improve your writing life, how to like be more creative and get more done and blah, 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 blah. I do think this will help with that. I do think this will help you write more fiction and better fiction than you would without it. Even though you're going to be splitting up your time a little bit more, time you might have spent in front of your screen trying to write, I'm encouraging you to find other things to do with as well. But that's not the core logic of this, right? I want you to make sure that you are protecting your joy in the writing that you do, that you're finding enjoyment and pleasure in putting words on the page, in telling stories, right? Ideally, all of you like to write, right? Like we like to we tell a lot of jokes about how hard writing is and how it's suffering, right? Like, I'm guilty of this too. I say all the time, like, you know, I've spent my whole career adjacent to writers. Writing a novel seems to be mostly suffering, right? Like, it is painful, it is difficult. Now, I was talking with some people about this over lunch. There's an important concept I really like about type 1, type 2, and type 3 fun. Does everybody know this idea?
No.
Okay, so type 1 fun is it is fun while you're doing it, and it's fun when you think about it later. Type 2 fun is it's not fun while you're doing it, but it is fun when you think about it later. So think about like hiking, for example. Halfway through your hike, you're miserable, you're hot, you're sweaty, you're tired. But when you get home, you've had a nice beer, you've sat down, you're in an air-conditioned environment, you're like, damn, I had a great time today, what a fun day, right? That's type 2 fun. Type 3 fun is you're having a bad time while it's happening, and when you think about it later, you think that was a bad time, but you're still glad you did it, right? This is like being on a hiking trip where things go wrong, right? You're caught in the rain, or you're rained out, or like, you know, whatever, something bad happens, but you're like, that was an experience, I'm glad I did that. Wasn't fun at the time, isn't really fun to think about it later, but you're finding some value in it, right? Writing can often be type 2 fun, right? A lot of creative processes fall into that type 2 fun category. The moment in which you're sitting in front of your keyboard, putting words on the page, not always having a good time in that moment, right? So learning to enjoy and value type 2 fun in your life. Sometimes writing is type 1 fun, right? Don't get me wrong. There are times where you're grooving and it's a great time and you're enjoying it in the moment. And I hope that is more often than not. But every writer runs into type 2 fun days, right? So remember that as you're like going through this process and as you're working. And so a lot of this is really learning to embrace the joy in writing, right? Remember that you like doing this even when it's hard. And that's the kind of stuff I want you to have better access to have clarity on, to think about as you go into your writing lives from here, right? And then the last is rest and regeneration can be radical acts, right? We live in an environment that wants you to be productive all the time. We are a productivity-obsessed culture. You should be being more efficient, making more money, working more hours, whatever it is. You know, all of the narratives we get, whether from self-help books, from, you know, online advice, from our friends, from our family, from our instructors, has always been about how to be more productive, how to be more efficient, all of that. Taking time for yourself to rest and regenerate is incredibly important to be an effective artist. To make good art, you need to be well rested, you need to be cared for. And I'm going to talk about why in a second here, but keep that in mind too, that rest and regeneration, relaxation, taking time for yourself, all of that is radical work that allows you to be the best version of yourselves, even though it is not, quote unquote, optimal, right? I want you to stop thinking about optimization and efficiency and start thinking about quality. Start thinking about what are the best things you can be doing with your time.